Hi, we're going to be talking about introduction paragraphs today. The introduction paragraph is the first paragraph of an essay. So it's how you begin your academic essay. When you think about introducing yourself to somebody for the first time, you'll give them a little bit of information about yourself. You'll say your name, who you are, and some general information. Maybe you talk about where you're from, what you like to do, but you don't get very specific. And it's the same with an introduction paragraph. You want to connect with your reader, but you stay pretty safe. You don't get very specific. You don't give a whole lot of details at this point until you get to know your reader a little bit more. So in your introduction paragraph, the purpose of it is to give the reader information to understand your main point, to explain why the topic and your ideas are important, to give the reader an idea of who you are as the writer. So, like, what makes you the expert on this topic? What is your point of view? Where are you coming from? And to tell the reader the main idea and purpose of your essay. This last part is called your thesis statement. So we have this sample introduction that we looked at in class that introduces Vermont as a cultural place, a cultural community that has its own cultural norms. So let's take this introduction apart. Vermonters are known for being independent and resilient people. It's a pretty simple, basic sentence, but this will get their reader's attention. If someone is reading this, then they want to know about Vermont and Vermonters. And when they say independent and resilient, those are considered pretty good characteristics. Resilient means that you can overcome challenges, and so the reader might start to wonder, well, what makes them resilient? What is it about Vermont that needs resilience? So it starts to get them a little bit interested. Then this part of the introduction is giving some background information. So we learn a little bit about the location of Vermont. We learn a little bit about its popularity, not very popular, right? It helps the reader to understand the community because maybe the reader doesn't know much about the state. And so this kind of helps that reader picture where it is, think about this place, and understand the perspective of Vermonters a little bit more. And that is going to help the reader understand why Vermonters have their cultural norms. So this relates to where those norms come from, especially because I talk about the economy is small, the winters are terribly cold, and there's not much diversity. Those are bad things. But Vermonters really value the environment and health, and those are things that you get in Vermont, even though it has some of these other bad qualities. Notice that this information is still pretty broad. The economy is small. Okay, but it doesn't go into details. Winters are cold. Okay, but it doesn't go into a whole lot of detail about how cold it is. This is just very general information. In this part, the author is doing two things. First, the author is explaining the problem or issue. The issue is that it's difficult for Vermonters to move, for outsiders to move to Vermont. They don't always feel like they fit in or are part of the culture there. So this is an issue, and because this is an issue, this is why we're going to talk about it. The author also uses this as a chance to introduce herself. So now the reader knows the author is from Vermont and has experience living there. Also says a little bit about her parents. So this makes her the expert. She knows what she's talking about. She's from this place, and so she can give us some inside information. And then finally we have the thesis statement. So the thesis is like the solution to the problem. It's giving the reader that information they need so that when they go to Vermont, they're not the outsider. They understand now what Vermonters value. And the reader also is learning or is being told that they're going to learn about the social norms. So the author makes it very clear what this essay is going to be about. It's going to explain the social norms that are related to these values. And that will help the reader when they go to Vermont to fit in. So to review a little bit, when you think of your introduction, you often go from general to specific. So you'll start with a hook and background information. You want to get the reader's attention, draw them in, and give them some background info. Just like when you meet someone for the first time and you want to find something that you have in common. You want to talk about things that you both know about. It's the same in the beginning of your introduction. If you start talking about specific things that your reader has no idea, like they just don't know anything about it, they're going to stop reading because they'll feel overwhelmed or they'll feel like, I can't talk to this person. I don't know anything about this topic. So they'll back away. They'll put your writing down. So you want to start your introduction by finding common ground, by giving just enough information so that your reader understands. You don't want to scare your reader away. Then you get a little bit more specific, right? Why is this topic important? So what is the issue that you'll be writing about? What are the different ideas that might need to be discussed? And this can help your reader see why this matters. It also leads you right down to your thesis statement, because your thesis statement is sometimes like your idea or your solution to the problem. And it states explicitly what the rest of your essay is going to show or be about. A lot of students and writers, a lot of writers feel very intimidated when they start writing the introduction. So here are some steps to kind of get you started. I first recommend writing your body paragraphs and thesis first. This is because sometimes as we are writing, our body paragraphs and our thesis change. And because they change, that will change the information that you need to put into your introduction. So oftentimes people will start by getting all their main ideas on paper, and then they'll think, okay, they'll get to the second spot, brainstorm. What does the reader need to know that will help her or him understand my ideas? What do they need to know about this topic? So again, when you go back to the Vermont example, maybe the reader doesn't even know where Vermont is because it's pretty small. Now, if I'm talking about the United States in general, I probably don't need to tell where the United States is. Most people will know that. So that kind of brings you to this other part. What does the reader already know about my topic? So maybe you want to start with something they have in common. And also think about, you don't want to include something the reader already knows and finds boring. So if I start telling you, like, the United States is between Canada and Mexico, that's, you probably already know that. So there's no reason to include it. Also think about what the reader needs to know about you as a writer. You don't need to give a lot of personal information, but they might need to know a little bit about your perspective, because your perspective or your life experiences will influence the way you view the topic. And also brainstorm, why is this topic important? What is the issue or problem? Why does my reader need my opinion or ideas about this? What can I offer on this topic that might be a different idea or new information for them? I recommend just free writing about this, getting the ideas on paper, making a list, and then starting to put it together, organize it into this general to specific framework. Another method is to look at introduction paragraphs that you like and then use the same sentence structure or organization. For example, if you look at the original, Vermonters are known for being independent and resilient people. That's how it started. Maybe I could change mine to Californians are known for being relaxed and liberal people. So similar sentence structure there, but new ideas and new topic. Most people outside of the U.S. have never heard of it, and even most Americans know very little about the state. I changed that. People around the world have heard of California, and many Americans want to live here. So just if there's a sentence that you like or a structure that you like from other introduction paragraphs, be sure to use that in your own. And if there's sentence structures or organization that you don't like, then stay away from it. Say, all right, that doesn't fit my writing style. I'm going to try something different. Okay, now that you've watched this, I want you to go to the Canvas discussion and answer these questions. So what are 2 ideas, strategies, or pieces of knowledge that you want to remember from this lecture? So from this video, what do you think is important, or you want to try, or you want to remember to do? What information was new to you, and what did you already know? So write a couple sentences for that. And then finally, this part is optional, but I encourage you to do it. So what questions do you still have about introduction paragraphs? This is your chance to put those questions on Canvas. Chances are, if you have the question, one of your classmates also has the same question. So please put your questions up on Canvas, and that way I will make sure to answer those and we can go over it. All right, thank you so much for watching. What?